alcoholic millionaire collapses. The black maid acts quickly, and his reaction changes everything. Jonathan Moreau, a New York millionaire marked by the pain of loss and addiction, seemed to have lost everything: his peace, his dignity, and even his will to live. On the other side, Selena Alvarez, a maid who fought every day to raise her daughter alone, carried in silence the strength of someone who never let life harden her heart. Two worlds separated by social distance and prejudice were about to collide in an unexpected way. What started as an unlikely encounter turned into a journey of exposed vulnerabilities, injustices, secrets from the past, and decisions that would forever change both of their fates. Through painful falls and intense revelations, their path showed that life can turn upside down when you least expect it, and that even the deepest wounds can make room for something new to be born. Before we dive into this emotional story, I want to know one thing. Where are you watching from? Drop it in the comments. I'd love to know how far this story is reaching, and if you're into intense love stories full of twists and heart-touching endings, make sure to subscribe to the channel. That way, you help me keep bringing content like this and become part of our growing community. Manhattan, late at night. The glass skyscraper breathes cold lights while the city pulses below like a restless heart. On the top floor, Jonathan Moreau's office looks like an expensive aquarium. Transparent walls, dark wooden shelves, a leather couch serving as the stage for long silences. On the desk, a half-full glass of whiskey, 2 open bottles, and an unlabeled pill bottle lying on its side. Next to the monitor, a photo of a smiling woman with a light scarf around her neck, Elise, anchoring a memory that hurts more than any hangover. Jonathan staggers in, his impeccable suit disheveled, the tie choking like a noose tied to a memory that refuses to go away. He turns on an old playlist, low volume, just to drown out what he feels. Fills the glass, swallows 2 pills, then 1 more. His hands tremble. "Just for today," he whispers, like someone bargaining with the abyss. The music blends with the hum of the air conditioner. The city turns into a blur, and then the body gives in. The glass drops, shattering on the thick carpet, and the CEO collapses beside the desk, stiff for a moment, limp the next, breath shallow and harsh. A few minutes pass. Footsteps rush down the hallway, cleaning staff and 2 executives returning from a late dinner. They glance through the glass, hesitate. "Is that Moreau?" One whispers, "Don't get involved. Call security." The other replies, backing off as if a force field surrounded the room. No one enters. Silence returns, heavy. The cleaning cart slides and stops at the door. Selena Alvarez, 33, dark brown skin contrasting with the simple uniform, medium-length braids tied back, sharp brown eyes that catch what others miss, watches for a second and pushes the handle. "Mr. Moreau?" she calls, voice steady, trained by years of handling emergencies without being seen. She steps through the glass as if it's nothing, kneels quickly, notices the tie strangling his neck, the strong smell of alcohol, the cold skin. "Mr. Moreau, can you hear me?" No answer. She touches the artery in his neck, feels a weak, irregular pulse, leans in to check for breath. There, but too faint. "Breathe. Breathe with me." With a swift motion, she loosens the tie, turns Jonathan's head to the side to prevent aspiration. Grabbing a pillow from the couch, she supports his neck. 2 executives appear in the doorway, frozen. "Call security and 911, now quick," she orders, without looking up. But shouldn't we wait for someone from the board? One Ventures? He's alive, but he needs help. Now. The authority in her voice cuts through the indecision. Feet disappear down the hall. Selena pulls out her phone, dials. 911, what's your emergency? Male, 41, unconscious on the executive floor of Moreau Capital. Irregular breathing, strong smell of alcohol, possible interaction with medication. He has a weak pulse, unresponsive, but breathing. Stay on the line. Place him in the recovery position. Monitor breathing. If it stops, we'll begin CPR. Is there a defibrillator on site? Yes, in the hallway. I've already asked someone to bring it. Paramedics are on their way. Keep talking. Selena carefully supports his weight, keeping his chin slightly lifted to open the airway. Mr. Moreau, listen to my voice. You're safe. The security radio crackles, and a guard arrives with the automated external defibrillator in hand. Does he have a pulse? He asks. Yes, but weak. Let's keep the AED ready. The guard sets the equipment beside her, steps back. 2 employees watch, unable to step in. For God's sake, don't film this, Selena snaps, noticing a phone subtly raised. The phone lowers. Respect enters the CEO's office for the first time. Jonathan's chest rises and falls irregularly. He mutters something hoarse, incomprehensible. The music plays softly, like a memory of a good day. In the photo, Elise smiles, untouched by time. Selena follows the dispatcher's instructions, watches the breathing rhythm, checks the pulse, keeps his body steady. You're going to stay with me, okay? Stay with me, she repeats, like pulling someone back from an invisible cliff. What's the patient's name? The voice on the phone asks. Jonathan Moreau. Okay, the team is 3 minutes away. The 3 minutes feel like a long road. The air conditioner whispers, the city below seems too far away to matter. Security, bring me water and a thermal blanket, she asks. The guard runs, returns with a silver emergency blanket. Selena covers Jonathan's torso, trying to preserve warmth. Mr. Moreau, if you can hear me, squeeze my hand. Nothing. She takes a deep breath, finds her hand steady. It's not the first time she's held the world together until help arrived. At the door, a middle-aged director with a stony expression appears. What is she doing in there? He says, tense, saving his life. The security guard replies, eyes fixed on the scene. The director swallows hard, sees the defibrillator, the blanket, the loosened tie, the shattered glass on the carpet. He also sees Elise's photo. And for a second, humanity breaks through the business wall. Jonathan lets out a longer breath, his chest finally finding rhythm. His fingers move, just barely. That's it. Breathe. With me, Selena encourages. She leans in to check his eyes. The eyelids twitch. A distant siren approaches, echoing like a promise. He tries to open his eyes, confused, like someone returning from very far away. He focuses on the ceiling for a moment, then on Selena's face. Big brown eyes, braids shining under the cold office light. Something inside him recognizes a safe place, or maybe a past that hurt too much. Elise. He whispers, lips barely moving, still lost between alcohol and memory. The name hangs in the air, heavy and sweet, like rain that takes too long to fall. Selena understands without understanding. There's love, grief, and an open wound there. The siren reaches the ground floor. The elevator rises. And in that moment, before the medical team crosses the door, everything changes. Because he came back to life looking at her and calling out for someone else. The sound of paramedics still echoed through the hallways when the elevator doors closed and took Jonathan Moreau toward the nearest hospital. The executive floor, moments earlier filled with urgency, returned to cold silence. Selena Alvarez stood in the center of the room, staring at the shattered glass on the carpet as if it were a fractured mirror of her boss's life. Elisa's photo remained on the desk, unmoved, reminding her of the name he had whispered upon waking. The next morning, the glass-walled office was once again lit by the Manhattan sun. Jonathan returned early from the hospital, accompanied by a trusted aide. He wore the same suit from the day before, now neatly pressed, and dark sunglasses to hide his red eyes. As he passed through reception, some employees whispered, but he walked straight ahead as if nothing had happened. Selena, quietly tidying the main hall, looked away. Later, when she entered his office to take out the trash, he was seated at his desk, reviewing papers. He pretended not to notice her presence. The silence was heavy, as if the previous night had never happened. Selena took a deep breath and risked it. "Mr. Moreau, how are you feeling today?" He didn't look up, just muttered curtly, "I'm fine. Just a minor discomfort. Thank you for your professionalism." The sentence sounded cold, like a contract closed. Selena lowered her gaze, held back the question she wanted to ask, and left. That same afternoon, digital newspapers ran the headline, "CEO Jonathan Moreau collapses in Manhattan office after night of excess." Gossip blogs and social media accounts spread the story, adding rumors and cruel jokes. Moreau Capital's shares quietly dipped in the stock market, but the damage was done. Selena was called to the meeting room on the lower floor. There, 3 suited men were waiting. The CFO, the head of human resources, and a legal advisor. One of them gently closed the door. The tone was calculated, almost rehearsed. "Ms. Alvarez, we appreciate your diligence. However, Mr. Moreau is going through a delicate time and we need your discretion." She remained firm. "I didn't say anything. I only did what anyone would have done." The CFO leaned forward, his eyes cold behind his glasses. "Exactly. And we want to make sure it stays that way. Sign this confidentiality agreement and receive a bonus. It's simple. No one needs to know any details." He slid the folder toward her. Selena looked at the pages, took a deep breath, and handed them back. "I don't need money for saving someone's life." An uncomfortable silence took over the room. The legal advisor pursed his lips. The HR head cleared his throat. The director, irritated by her refusal, stood up, walked slowly toward her, and stopped close enough that his shadow fell over her. "You're nobody. Don't forget that. You work here because we allow it. If you want to keep this job, do what we're asking." The weight of the sentence hit Selena like an invisible punch. Inside, the humiliation burned. Her throat tightened, but she swallowed hard, holding her gaze steady to show no weakness. She gathered her things, kept her posture upright, and walked out as her determined footsteps echoed down the hall. Outside, a few employees whispered about the just-published article, laughing quietly, but she kept walking without hesitation. Deep down, a certainty grew. Jonathan Moreau's powerful world wouldn't forget her so easily, even if he pretended nothing had happened. The director's cruel phrase kept echoing in her mind. "You're nobody." But in silence, Selena promised herself that one day, they would find out who she really was. That cruel phrase still echoed in Selena's mind as she silently cleaned the gleaming halls of Moreau Capital. She tried to focus on her work, but the memory of the humiliation cut like an invisible blade. Upstairs, behind glass walls, Jonathan Moreau was fighting an even crueler war, a battle against his own body and the ghosts that kept visiting him. Alone in the penthouse, Jonathan kept the curtains closed to block out the morning light. The smell of alcohol hung in the air, mixed with the fading scent of his wife's perfume, still lingering on a scarf forgotten on the armchair. The glass trembled in his hand, His once intense blue eyes were now red and teary. He saw shadows, heard Elisa's soft voice calling his name. "John, you left me." The hallucination made him press his hands to his head, as if he could drive the torment away. In the office, executives avoided entering his room. His withdrawal episodes were whispered about in the halls, but no one dared confront the boss. Selena, however, watched quietly. She saw when he staggered across reception, sweat beading down his forehead despite the cool air. She also saw when he locked himself in the empty meeting room and let his glass fall to the floor, shattering the silence. She took a deep breath, looked around, and pushed the half-open door. Jonathan was sitting with his face in his hands. The arrogant shine was gone. All that remained was a broken man. Selena approached slowly and placed a bottle of water on the table. "Drink some? It'll help." He looked up, surprised. "You again," he muttered with disdain, but his trembling hand grabbed the bottle. He drank in short gulps, breathing heavily. Minutes later, the episode returned. He started shaking, eyes locked on a blank spot on the wall. "She's here. I see her." His voice was choked, almost childlike. Selena stayed calm. "There's no one here, Mr. Moreau. It's your mind. Breathe with me. Inhale. Exhale." She repeated the movement, and slowly he mirrored her, like a lost student searching for direction. That night, Jonathan didn't go home. He lay on the leather couch in his office, covered with a blanket Selena found in the closet. She stayed in the hallway at a distance, just to make sure he was still breathing. When he woke up in the middle of the night, confused, he found a cup of hot tea on the table beside him. "Who?" he murmured, but he already knew the answer. The next day, Jonathan tried to pull himself together. He put on his suit, fixed his hair, but the weakness showed in his eyes. When he passed Selena, he pretended not to see her, as always. Still, when he entered his office, he found a small box of fresh fruit on his desk and a simple note. "Take care. S." He said nothing, but the note stayed in his jacket pocket all day. The hours passed. The weight of the past came back stronger when he found his wife's photo in the drawer. He gripped the frame tightly, eyes welling up. "I couldn't save you, and now I can't even save myself." He took the hidden bottle, drank straight from the neck, and the pain turned to anger. He threw the frame against the wall. Glass shattered across the floor. Selena, walking by the hall, heard the crash and entered without knocking. He was sitting on the floor, his face wet with tears and sweat. "Get out!" he shouted, but his voice came out weak, lacking authority. She approached, knelt beside him, and held his hand. "You don't have to face this alone." He looked at her, his blue eyes full of pain and alcohol. His breathing was uneven, his body shaking. And then, as if a dam had burst, he let it slip. "If it weren't for you, I'd already be dead." The silence after the confession hung heavy in the room. Selena swallowed hard, unsure how to respond. Deep down, she understood that the phrase meant more than gratitude. It was the first thread of humanity he had let out in a long time. If you made it this far, comment redemption. That way I'll know you're feeling the weight of this story. And we'll keep the curious ones who only read the comments wondering. Jonathan's confession still echoed when, the next morning, Manhattan woke up to news that lit up cell phones and computer screens. A local tabloid splashed in bold letters, "Millionaire Moreau saved by Black Maid." The headline spread like wildfire. Social media exploded with comments. Some praised Selena Alvarez's courage, others mocked her, suggesting she was seeking attention or perks. In the office, the atmosphere was tense. Employees moved from desk to desk, eyes glued to their phones, whispering. Photos of Selena entering and leaving the building were shared online, captured by onlookers who now called her the invisible woman who dared to save the boss. She walked the halls with her head held high, but felt each glance like a silent arrow. In the main office, Jonathan Moreau was meeting with board members. His face was serious, hidden behind a calculated mask. "We need to control the narrative," one of the directors said. Another added, "The company's image is at risk. You need to deny it. Say you don't remember. This will blow over in a few days." Jonathan ran a hand down his tired face, took a deep breath, and replied coldly, "Do whatever you think is best. I don't remember anything." The sentence sounded like a verdict. Meanwhile, Selena was quietly pulled aside by a colleague from the cleaning team. "They're talking about you out there. Best not go outside right now." But it was already too late. In the hallway, two young employees laughed while looking at a phone. One said loud enough for her to hear, "Rental hero, that's what she is." The other added, "Bet she'll ask for a raise." Selena clenched her fists but kept walking. On the subway home, the tension followed her. Curious looks, whispers, even a mocking smile from a passenger who recognized her from the report. When she arrived at her small Bronx apartment, she breathed a sigh of relief hearing her daughter's voice. Sofia Alvarez, 9 years old, was sitting on the couch, still in her school uniform, curls falling over her shoulders, watching TV. On screen, a host commented, "The maid who saved the millionaire, hero or opportunist." Sofia frowned and turned to her mother with a child's raw innocence. "Mommy, why are they making fun of you if you just helped?" The question hit Selena like a weight on her heart. She walked over, knelt in front of her daughter, and held her small hands, trying to hide the pain in her eyes. Selena's silence in the face of her daughter's innocent question still lingered, when, the next day, she was summoned to an unexpected meeting on the 30th floor of Moreau Capital. It was the first time she'd been called to the dark wood oval room, where only the most powerful executives gathered. As she entered, she felt the weight of their stares. Men in tailored suits, women with stern expressions, all surrounded by folders, contracts, and laptops. At the head of the table, Jonathan Moreau sat with a stern face. He wore a flawless gray suit, but his eyes betrayed exhaustion. Beside him, the CFO began, "Miss Alvarez, we're here to address a delicate matter. Your recent visibility has brought discomfort to the company's image." Selena kept her posture straight, despite her racing heart. "I didn't seek visibility. I only helped a life." The head of human resources slid an envelope across the table. "We understand, but we believe it would be best for everyone if you accepted fair compensation and stepped away. $10,000 in recognition of your service, and Mr. Moreau will make sure you get a job at another company." Selena looked at the envelope, but didn't touch it. Jonathan lowered his eyes, avoiding her gaze. There was a shadow of shame on his face. "You're trying to pay me to disappear?" Selena asked firmly. The CFO gave a slight smile. "It's not about that. It's a way to preserve your dignity." She took a deep breath, her voice steady and clear. "My dignity isn't for sale. I work hard every day to support my daughter. What I did was human, not a transaction. If you think you can buy silence, you're mistaken." The room froze. Some of the board members exchanged uncomfortable glances. Jonathan adjusted his tie but still said nothing. The legal director pressed on. "Think carefully, Miss Alvarez. Life can be hard for people. In your position, this is an opportunity you might never get again." Selena felt the sting of humiliation deep inside, but didn't let her voice waver. If my position is hard, it's because men like you feed off the silence of people like me. But I'm not signing anything. She pushed the envelope back without even raising a hand to receive it. The simple gesture rang out like a scream in the room. Jonathan, until then motionless, looked up. In that refusal, he saw something he hadn't seen in a long time. True dignity, the kind that doesn't bow to numbers. The weight of his own choices fell on him. His heart raced, and for the first time, the mask of the executive began to crack. The silence became unbearable until Jonathan slowly stood up. He walked to the huge window overlooking the Manhattan skyline, took a deep breath, and turned back to the board. His voice came out strong, filled with something he hadn't expected to feel. You're trying to buy her honor, but mine is already lost. And you think that's okay? The silence after Jonathan's outburst to the board lingered in the air like an echo that wouldn't fade. In the hallways, no one dared speak about what had happened, but everyone knew that moment had changed something irreversible. That night, he didn't return to the luxury penthouse from which he used to overlook Manhattan, surrounded by wealth and emptiness. He stayed in his office. The city lights reflected in the tall windows, as if reminding him every second that there was an entire world pulsing outside. But it felt more and more distant from him. Sitting at his desk, his tie loose and head in his hands, Jonathan looked like a man stripped of all titles. As Selena left, their eyes met for the first time without barriers. She didn't see the millionaire boss, the feared CEO, the man in perfect suits. She saw only someone broken, his shoulders too heavy, still trying to understand why he couldn't fight for his own life when it mattered most. Their gaze held for a few seconds that felt like forever, and for the first time, there was no hierarchy, just silence and humanity. In the days that followed, something subtle changed. Jonathan began to seek out Selena's presence with flimsy excuses. He'd call her in to ask about building routines, about cleaning a room, but the conversations always drifted into personal details, as if he was searching, without admitting it, for refuge in her voice. One afternoon, the weight in his voice revealed his accumulated exhaustion. He leaned on the desk, staring at his own fingers, and asked hesitantly, "You mentioned your daughter the other day. What's it like raising a child alone in a city like this?" Selena took a deep breath. For a moment, she thought about not answering, but the sincerity in his blue eyes convinced her. "It's hard, Jonathan. I work all day, and even then, sometimes it feels like it's not enough. Sophia deserves more than I can give, but she's my strength. She's the reason I get up every day." Jonathan stayed silent, her words echoing like hammers in his conscience. It wasn't just a mother's confession. It was proof of a courage he had never had. He felt small before the greatness of someone who never had the luxury of choosing her path. He finally murmured, almost as a confession, "I lost my wife in a car accident, and since then, I haven't known who I am. I've lost control of myself." His voice cracked at the end, like he was admitting a secret forged in pain. Selena saw, behind the arrogance he wore like armor, only unresolved grief. From that moment on, their closeness became inevitable. Jonathan began to see her not as an invisible employee, but as a woman who faced the world with dignity and resilient silence. Selena, in turn, began to see not only the fragile man broken by addiction, but someone who, even shattered, might still be able to rebuild himself. One Saturday morning, chance brought them even closer. The neighbor who usually watched Sophia couldn't that day, and Selena had to bring her along to work. The 9-year-old girl walked shyly through the marble halls of Moreau capital, Her eyes sparkled as she took in the modern paintings, shiny desks, and glittering chandeliers that seemed to belong to another world. Jonathan, upon seeing her, stopped mid-step. For the first time in a long time, he smiled. "You must be Sophia." The girl nodded with the sweetness only childhood carries. "Are you my mom's boss?" Jonathan knelt down to her level, his suit wrinkling against the marble floor. "I'm just Jonathan. You can call me that." Throughout the day, Sophia ran through the halls, drew on scrap paper, invented funny stories, and asked questions that pulled unexpected laughter from Jonathan. His laughter was light, pure, as if he had forgotten he still knew how to laugh. Selena, watching from a distance, could hardly believe it. The cold man who had so often ignored her now seemed to rediscover life in the small gestures of a child. By late afternoon, the pace slowed. Sophia, tired, dozed off on the office couch, her hair falling across her face. Jonathan approached slowly, almost reverently, and adjusted the blanket over her. Then, instinctively, he picked her up to carry her to a more comfortable room. His arms, once heavy from alcohol and loneliness, now held her gently. His hardened face softened with an almost forgotten emotion. Selena walked in at that moment. She froze at the door, her heart racing at the scene. Jonathan Moreau, the arrogant millionaire who had so often treated her as invisible, now carried her daughter with tenderness, as if she were part of him. A chill ran down Selena's spine. Surprise, hope, and a soft fear mixed together. For the first time, she saw in him a human side no one else had noticed. If you made it this far, comment tenderness. That way I'll know you're connected to the story. And we'll confuse the ones who only read the comments. The image of Jonathan holding Sophia in his arms still lingered vividly in Selena's memory, a portrait of tenderness that had seemed impossible amid the chaos of his life. But the sweetness of that moment quickly dissolved in the face of harsh reality. A few days later, the halls of Moreau capital began to poison themselves with rumors. The sincere, human gesture she had silently witnessed was now twisted into malicious whispers and sideways glances. Employees gossiped in break rooms, elevators, even in crowded hallways, as if the CEO's private life were an open show for speculation. "She's taking advantage of his weakness," whispered one secretary, leaning toward another as she stirred her coffee. The other raised her eyebrows and replied with malice, "Can you imagine?" The cleaning lady turned CEO's confidant. Stifled laughter echoed, cutting the air like knives. Some spoke in even lower tones, but with crueler venom. Women like her always find a way to rise up, using other means. These phrases, full of prejudice and disdain, traveled from mouth to mouth, contaminating the atmosphere. Selena walked through the halls with her head held high, her eyes steady, trying to look unshakable. But each word, each stifled laugh, each sideways glance hit her like invisible blades, slowly cutting. She knew she had done nothing but help, but malice didn't need proof, only suggestion. When she finally returned home that night, she hugged Sophia tighter than usual, almost as if trying to protect herself inside that small embrace. "Is everything okay, Mommy?" the girl asked, her big innocent eyes looking at her mother with concern. Selena took a deep breath, swallowed the pain, and answered with a gentle smile, "Yes, sweetheart, everything's fine." Inside, though, she carried the weight of an unjust world. Meanwhile, Jonathan was also hearing the rumors circulating within his own company. In a meeting with his closest advisors, the atmosphere was heavy. Papers were scattered across the table, charts projected on screens, and an uncomfortable silence hung in the air. one that preceded a truth no one dared to say. Until one of the directors, with the calculated boldness of someone who believes they're protecting the company's image, muttered, "Perhaps it would be wise to limit proximity to Ms. Alvarez before your reputation is completely compromised." Jonathan slowly lifted his tired but intense blue eyes. The silence thickened. He placed his pen down on the table and said firmly, "She saved my life. Would you rather I turn my back on that too?" His voice, cold and laced with raw truth, silenced the room immediately. No one dared to respond, but the real test would come in front of the world. A conference with shareholders and the press had been scheduled at a luxury hotel, filled with golden columns and a grand hall packed with aligned cameras, journalists ready with notepads and microphones. It was a chance to ease the damage to Moreau Capital's reputation, but also a stage for a potential disaster. Jonathan took the center seat on stage, flanked by stiff directors, their expressions tense. Camera flashes went off non-stop, like lightning bolts of judgment. Among the crowd, Selena had been quietly invited to attend as a regular employee. She stood at the back, invisible as always, but with her heart racing faster by the minute. A reporter raised his hand and asked the question everyone had been waiting for. "Mr. Moreau, there are reports that the cleaning staff member who assisted you now has privileged access to your personal life. Many believe she is taking advantage of your vulnerability. What do you have to say about that?" The entire room murmured, as if the provocation had sparked a fire. Selena felt her stomach twist. The words hit her with the force of an accusation. Jonathan lowered his eyes for a moment. Right there, in front of the cameras and investors, he could have denied it, deflected, or used the polished version the board had prepared. The CFO, seated beside him, leaned in and discreetly whispered, "Say you don't remember. It's the best move." But Jonathan lifted his head, his eyes locked on the reporter, and his voice came out firm, almost slicing the air. "No, I remember everything." The room fell silent immediately. It was as if the world had paused. Jonathan took a deep breath and, with unexpected calm, continued, "Yes, she saved my life, and she is the only reason I'm still here." The words echoed through the hall like thunder. Investors looked at each other. Journalists scrambled to write down every syllable, and at the back, Selena felt her eyes fill with tears. For the first time, Jonathan Moreau acknowledged her in front of everyone, without fear, without masks. And nothing would be the same after that. The silence after Jonathan's public statement still lingered in the news when, in real life, the problems only multiplied. For a few days, it seemed the world was willing to welcome him back as a man brave enough to expose his weaknesses. But real life doesn't heal with inspiring headlines. While he had taken a step toward truth, his wounds remained open and visible. Just days after the press conference, photographers caught him stumbling out of a bar in Manhattan. His gaze lost, shoulders slumped, hand brushing the walls to keep himself upright. It was the image of a man at war with himself. The images, captured in seconds, were published on news sites and spread across social media within minutes. The headlines were cruel. The millionaire who says he was saved, but can't save himself. Memes appeared. Sarcastic comparisons flooded the comment sections. A society that once applauded his honesty now mocked his relapse. Selena saw the photos while scrolling through her phone during breakfast. Her stomach turned, her heart sank. It wasn't just Jonathan's reputation crumbling. It was his inner battle consuming him. She closed her eyes for a moment, gripping her cup tightly. She knew that sooner or later, he would have to choose. Keep sinking into the abyss, or finally accept the hand she had extended so many times. But while she thought of him, the past came knocking in a brutal way. It was a cloudy afternoon in the Bronx, the wind howling through the windows, when someone rang the doorbell insistently. Selena opened the door and froze. Standing before her was Marcus, Sophia's father. The man looked older and harder. Tall, broad-shouldered, light brown skin, unkempt beard, cold, dark eyes. His cynical smile couldn't hide the arrogance he always carried. "Aren't you going to invite me in?" "Selena?" he asked, his voice slow, each syllable dripping with veiled threat. She kept the door half open, her body serving as a barrier. "What do you want, Marcus? You vanished for 9 years. Sophia doesn't even know who you are." He smirked, leaning in slightly. "She's about to find out." "I saw your name in the news. The maid who saved the millionaire. Nice move. You must be getting paid well to be his shadow." "I want my share." Selena felt her blood boil. Her chest rose and fell rapidly, but her voice stayed steady. "There's no share. I raised Sophia alone. You don't get to show up now and pretend you're her father." Marcus narrowed his eyes, stepping closer to the door's crack. His voice dropped but became even crueler. "Don't push me. I know how this world works. One more scandal and your Prince Charming falls apart. Give me what I want, or everyone will find out who you really are." Meanwhile, in his luxury apartment, Jonathan was fighting another battle. Alone, sitting at a shiny glass table, he stared at the whiskey bottle as if it were both enemy and refuge. The silence was filled only by the flashes he still heard in his mind. Photographers shouting, cameras snapping while he tried to stay on his feet. He remembered the shame, but also the image of Sophia sleeping in his arms, and the steady gaze of Selena, who had pulled him out of the void so many times. But the weight of guilt, the memory of Elise's death, was stronger. With trembling hands, he poured another glass. His vision blurred as the bitter taste burned his throat. Back in the Bronx, tension at Selena's door was mounting. Marcus didn't back down. He seemed to enjoy the fear he provoked. Selena, heart pounding, planted herself even more firmly in front of the door. "You're not going near my daughter. Not now. Not ever. You don't have that right." He let out a rough, joyless laugh, a sound more like a warning. "Careful, Selena. You'll regret this. I know secrets that could destroy you and that millionaire you're so quick to defend." Selena slammed the door shut, the sound echoing down the building hallway. She leaned against the wood, breathing deeply, trying to calm her racing heart. On the other side, the echo of the threat still vibrated. Marcus was back, and now it wasn't just Jonathan who was in danger. It was her own life and Sophia's that were on the line. The echo of Marcus's threat was still pounding in Selena's mind when, just days later, Jonathan hit rock bottom. Her ex's words hung over her like a constant shadow. But now, another storm was brewing in Jonathan's world. His relapse hadn't stayed private. Financial rivals took advantage of his vulnerability and spread devastating rumors. Business blogs and financial news outlets published biting headlines. "The Moreau empire in collapse. CEO unfit to lead billion-dollar deals." Every published word seemed to erode the reputation he had built. For the first time, Moreau Capital was facing a real risk of crumbling, right before its founder's eyes. The make or break event was scheduled at a luxury midtown hotel, with golden chandeliers, red carpets, and dozens of cameras lined up in front of the stage. The mood in the hall was one of judgment, not business. Journalists clutched notepads, ready for scandal, while investors whispered, eager for any sign of instability. Jonathan walked in, accompanied by Selena. He wore a flawless navy blue suit, but his red eyes revealed sleepless nights and internal battles. His steps were measured, as if every movement took effort not to collapse in front of everyone. Selena walked beside him, her posture steady, even as she carried the weight of hostile stares across the room. Executives whispered among themselves, barely hiding their disdain. "That's her, the cleaning lady. What's she doing here?" muttered one, his tone thick with irony. A few rows up, an elegant woman in sparkling jewelry commented loud enough to be heard. "It's disgraceful. He brought his downfall as his date." Stifled chuckles rippled through the room. Selena took a deep breath. Her heart pounded, but she kept her head high. Jonathan, though fragile, sensed the tension and the weight pressing down on her. For the first time in a long while, he felt the urgency to confront what he had always avoided, not just for himself, but for her. When he stepped onto the stage in front of a packed auditorium, the cold mask he had worn for years began to crack. The sound of camera flashes sliced through the silence. A reporter raised his voice, direct and incisive. "Mr. Moreau, are the rumors about your instability true? Are you really fit to lead Moreau Capital at such a critical time?" Jonathan held the microphone. For a moment, he hesitated. He could feel the board's eyes behind him, like sharp blades ready to cut if he failed. The instinct to flee, to deny, to spin a convenient version almost took over. But then he found, at the back of the room, Selena's steady gaze. There was no judgment there, only courage and silent faith. He took a deep breath. "Yes," he began, his voice trembling but filled with truth. "The rumors are true. I am an alcoholic. Ever since I lost my wife, I sank into a life that nearly killed me. But I'm not here to hide. I'm here because someone saved me, not just once, but every day, by believing in me when I didn't believe in myself. The impact was immediate." A wave of murmurs swept through the room. Journalists typed furiously, camera flashes intensified, investors exchanged incredulous glances. Selena, in the back, felt her heart race, as if every word cut through her skin. Jonathan, now steadier, continued. "That woman's name is Selena Alvarez. Yes, the same one many of you look down on for cleaning the hallways of this company. But the truth is, she cleaned something far greater, the darkness in my soul. If I'm standing here today, it's because she believed in me when everyone else turned their backs." The cameras turned to Selena. She lowered her eyes for a moment, overwhelmed, but held her posture. The silence that filled the hall was almost sacred. Jonathan, ignoring protocol, stepped down from the stage and walked toward her. The sound of his footsteps echoed through the room, and no one dared to interrupt. He stopped in front of her, reached out, and, without fear, held her hand. The gesture was simple, but full of meaning. In front of everyone, investors, reporters, rivals, Jonathan Moreau chose not only to own his truth, but also to publicly acknowledge the woman who had given him back his life. He lifted his gaze and declared, his voice firm and emotional, "She is not just the woman who saved my life. She is the reason I want to live. If you've made it this far, comment courage. That way, I'll know you're feeling this story with me, and will confuse those who only read the comments." The room was still in shock from Jonathan's declaration when, days later, the consequences began to unfold. The headlines, which once mocked his weakness, now told a different story. CEO admits addiction and begins recovery journey. For the first time in years, Jonathan Moreau didn't run from the truth. The man who always wore designer suits and hid his wounds behind a perfect posture had removed the mask in front of the world. He checked into a specialized clinic far from the city's noise, a place surrounded by tall trees and quiet gardens. But even in this refuge, Jonathan was never truly alone. Selena visited as often as she could, bringing books to inspire him, handwritten notes filled with encouragement, and the quiet strength of someone who knew that faith is built through small, consistent gestures. Sophia came along on some afternoons, running through the clinic's lawns, spreading innocent laughter among patients who, for a few moments, forgot their own pain. Jonathan watched her play and felt something rekindle inside him. Hope. One morning, sitting on a wooden bench beneath a cloudy sky, Jonathan broke the silence. "Do you think I can beat this?" he asked, his blue eyes fixed on the horizon, as if searching for answers that never came. Selena walked over slowly, sat beside him, and placed her hand on his. "It's not about what I think, Jonathan. It's about what I believe. And I believe in you." Her words were like balm to a wounded soul that hadn't known true compassion in a long time. Months later, when he left the clinic a changed man, Jonathan was no longer the same. He returned to the head of Moreau Capital, but not to repeat old patterns. His first decision was to initiate a deep restructuring, creating space for changes that reflected what he had learned. During a press conference broadcast nationwide, he surprised investors and reporters alike. "We're launching a social program to provide opportunities for invisible workers, drivers, janitors, cooks. They are the foundation that supports everything, and they will no longer be treated like shadows." Selena, sitting in the audience, felt her heart race. Her eyes filled with tears as she realized her pain had become the seed of a quiet revolution. The same woman once mocked in hallways was now an inspiration for a change that would echo beyond those walls. Time brought even more surprises. In the company's halls, where she once heard cruel whispers, she now received respectful greetings. Co-workers who once avoided her now smiled when passing by, and even executives looked at her with a mix of admiration and regret. Selena had earned something no amount of money could buy: respect. On a quiet night, after a long meeting that seemed endless, Jonathan asked her to join him on the company's rooftop. The cold New York wind blew strong, but Selena felt her heart beat louder than the wind itself. Facing the illuminated city, Jonathan looked at her with a sincerity few had ever seen in him. "Selena, you came into my life when I didn't believe in anything anymore. You saved my soul from a void I didn't know how to fill. I'm not the man I used to be. I don't just want to thank you. I want to build something with you." She took a deep breath, and tears rolled freely. "Jonathan, I never asked anything from you. I only wanted you to find your peace. But if what you feel is real, then maybe it's time we believe together." He smiled, and in that moment, there was light in his eyes, not the cold shine of power, but the warm flame of hope. Then Sophia came running onto the rooftop with all the spontaneity of childhood. Jonathan knelt down, opened his arms, and pulled her into a hug that felt like a promise of a different future. Selena joined them, and the three stood together in silence, gazing at the city sparkling before them. There was no boss and no maid, only an unlikely family rebuilding itself from pain. Fate had shown that second chances come from where we least expect them, and that true power isn't in wealth, but in the courage to change and the dignity of never giving up. And that was our story. I'd really love to know your thoughts. On a scale from 0 to 10, how much did you enjoy this story? Leave your rating in the comments. It means a lot to me. If you liked it, don't forget to like the video, share it with someone special, and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the next stories. And before you go, I've set aside another touching story that will move your heart even more.